Well, there's no business like Taylor Schabusiness. Let me just say that. Hi, Tony DeWitt here. I'm a Missouri appellate attorney, retired, and I bring you a fresh perspective on the law without offering any legal advice. So pull up a chair. This is what we're discussing today. Courtrooms used to be fairly safe places. I can remember going into courtrooms and never having to pass through a metal detector. For me, as a Missouri attorney, that changed in 1993 when a crazy person who was in the middle of a divorce brought two handguns to his court hearing. And once the hearing started, he managed to shoot his ex wife's attorney, his attorney, and he tried to kill the judge, but he missed. He was later shot to death by responding deputies. And as a result, all of a sudden, all over Missouri, we started seeing metal detectors come in, bags being searched. And no, it didn't matter. Even if you were an attorney, you had your bag searched at least. Not nobody looked at the papers, but they looked to make sure you didn't have a bazooka in there. That's to keep people safe. Normally, courtrooms are pretty safe places. Even in criminal cases, there are safeguards in place to protect everybody who is in the courtroom. One of my favorite stories from the courtroom is the time that I actually tried my first criminal case, and that's the reason it was my last criminal case. The prosecutor brought in a loaded firearm and placed it in front of on their table about, I guess, maybe 3 feet from where my client was sitting. It was his 45 caliber handgun. Now, 45 caliber handguns are big and they're scary, and that's not the kind of thing you want to have sitting on a table in a courtroom, particularly not when it has live rounds in it. And I pointed out to the judge that it had its magazine in and we needed to make sure that it wasn't loaded because nobody had done that. It had come from the prosecutor's office and they assured the judge it was unloaded. He said, "Bring it to me." So she went up and took it and handed it to the judge, and he dropped the magazine and racked the slide, and the round popped out. They got a stern rebuke. I didn't even get a thank you, but they got a stern rebuke. So maybe it all worked out in the end. But normally, like I say, they're fairly safe places for both litigants and attorneys. But every now and again, and you'll see it a lot of times on YouTube, where attorneys get attacked by their client. You have people who are just a little bit more than half a bubble off when you're dealing with people like Taylor Schabusiness, who killed a person in a particularly horrific way, was convicted of it, and sent to jail for the rest of her life. But that didn't stop her from getting into trouble once she got to jail, and she was having a hearing on her misconduct in jail, her assault in jail, and this happened.
All right, the court will call 24 CF 1048, State of Wisconsin versus Taylor Schabusiness. Appearances.
Gordon Leach for the state.
Taylor Schabusiness is personally present. She is in custody with Attorney Curtis Jelka.
All right, this matter is set for a preliminary hearing today. Mr. Jelka, what's the status?
Your Honor, my understanding is we are proceeding.
All right. Mr. Leach?
Your Honor, I'm just checking in on the status of my officer. I expected her to be here, but I'm also having connectivity problems here. I might need to run upstairs and see if she may be upstairs. If I can have a moment.
Sure.
And Judge, it sounds like just one witness. We're asking for a sequestration, but that may be a moot point.
All right.
It is one witness, Your Honor.
All right. We're off the record.
I love the way he just threw his hands up like, what are you going to do? It was pretty clear she had blood in her eye for him. And if you noticed, you can go back and replay it, but if you noticed, she kept scooting a little closer, a little closer, a little closer, and the cops were watching her because that's why they were able to react so quickly. She started that guttural lioness roar or whatever it was. I'm sure she was saying something, but being a crazy person, it didn't really come through, and she jumped at her attorney, and those deputies tackled her, took her to the floor, and I'm glad they did. They probably saved that poor guy's life. If she'd have gotten those handcuffs around his neck, she'd have probably broken it. That's one of the reasons why I believe it's very important for attorneys, particularly attorneys who are going to be handling any kind of criminal litigation, to have good empty hand skills. Now, no, you don't have to go get a black belt in Taekwondo or Aikido or Kung Fu or something in order to practice law, but it would be a really good idea if you could learn how to block punches and break holds. And that's because usually, if you do have a violent client, they have handcuffs on, normally in front. And of course, usually, if they're known to be violent, they will either have a shock belt on, which is sort of a radio activated taser. And when they jump out of their belt and start to attack someone, they hit a button on this thing and boom, they go flat to the floor, which is a good thing generally. Again, they don't always have that on. They don't always have the ability to put it on people. Sometimes there are medical conditions that prevent them from doing that. Sometimes people are just too doggone fat to wear one of the things. So they have to have deputies in the room to protect the people who are in the courtroom. And that's essentially what happened here. You saw the deputies, they jumped in, they tackled that woman immediately. And then this is what the outcome of that was.
Ms. Schabusiness is now down in the jail. She's appearing by Zoom from the jail. The last time we report, there was a commotion. She had yelled, stood up. She was then physically detained, moved out of the court, and moved down to the jail. It appeared, I didn't see exactly what happened with it. It appeared that she had tried to get at an attorney. And so the court does now find that Ms. Schabusiness is waived her right to be personally present during the outburst. Are we prepared to proceed with the preliminary hearing?
Yes, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I'm requesting to withdraw at this point in time.
Your request is denied. For this hearing, State versus Hayes 175 was second one. You can continue for this hearing, and then you can withdraw after that.
Okay.
So that's a good ruling by the judge. The judge is right. She has waived her right to be present during the pendency of this hearing. And what I thought was funny was, God bless the attorney. He tried to get out of this. He said, let me withdraw. The judge said, no, you have to represent her for this hearing, then you can withdraw. And that actually was legally the proper way to go. Now, obviously, she doesn't have any confidence in him, and later on that will be asserted, but the law is not going to allow her to be unrepresented at a preliminary hearing. It's really difficult for me to understand what good it does to take somebody who has a life sentence and sentence her to more time in prison, because the end of your natural life is a pretty finite point, and it's not like they can dig you up out of the grave or not bury you and stick you in the cell and leave you there to molder. So I don't understand again what the purpose of that is, other than, I suppose, to try and teach somebody a lesson. Although if they're if they're as far off the mental bubble as Taylor Schabusiness is, I really don't know what lesson they're teaching. But at any rate, I thought that was an interesting little thing. Didn't have to be a long video here. I just thought it would be really good to point out that sometimes lawyers fulfilling their constitutional duty to protect the rights of people who are charged with crimes, sometimes they do take it on the chin. Now, that guy didn't get hurt, and that's a good thing, but that's not always going to be the case. And frankly, I think they probably ought to make her attend by Zoom from now on. That's what I have for you today. I hope you found it helpful, interesting, or maybe both. If there's a subject you'd like me to discuss, please feel free to send me an email at the address above. If you like what we do, please feel free to subscribe and come on back to the beach tomorrow. I release videos every weekday, weather and work permitting. If you have the opportunity today, do a kindness for your fellow man. It makes the world a better place, one kind act at a time. And now, YouTube has some suggestions for other videos of mine that you might like.